Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is match day review time. One positive was the fish and chips. Two positives, you might have noticed someone very dear to me in the match day live. That was my daughter, who was asked to go and be a flag bearer before the game. And the third positive is that Rhys returns after a week away. I think he was hoping that he'd be coming back to talk about a more positive performance after the harrowing 3-0 defeat at home to Colchester last week. But no, unfortunately, it's been, after a very positive opening fortnight to the season, it's been a rough 7 days for the Gills. So we are going to sit over the next, I can't promise an hour this week, unfortunately, but we're going to try and pick the bones out of what was comfortably the most abject performance of the season so far, as we went down by 2-0 at Blundell Park against Paulhurst, Grimsby Town. Rhys, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me. Well, yeah, you're right. I was hoping to come for a win, but unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition at all yesterday. And yeah, and also, who was it that filled in for me last week? Sorry, the name evades me.
Harry Kinslow did a brilliant job.
That's
yes.
it. Yeah, he did a great job last week, and I kind of feel bad that he had to fill in for a loss, so now it's kind of my turn to experience.
That's it. Yeah, take your punishment like the rest of us. Right. Let's get on with this. I think the quicker we can get this done today, the better. Unfortunately, we just said before we press record, this is the first one that we've not looked forward to. Last week, I thought was a blip, and that we'd get back on the horse, so to speak. And we did to a degree. We went to Luton and put in a decent performance. I was unable to attend. I was away with the family. But by all accounts, it was a decent display, and we gave them a good game. So yesterday was something out of the blue. And I've written, before we look at team news and go through the timeline of the game, deserved nothing, got nothing, never put together anything in terms of concerted pressure. Everyone way off the pace.
That's very accurate. I don't think you can be more accurate than that. It's a game. If you were to as a performance, it was nothing. There was nothing really. I can't. Like a highlight for me was a shot on target and a decent cross from Malone in the first half. Like that is literally all I can think of. Oh, there's one more actually, and we'll come to it a little bit later. There's one.
The full-time whistle.
Yeah, that's it. And that was. I have to say that was a sweet sound. I've got to be honest. But yeah, you described that very accurately. There was nothing. And Grimsby, let's be honest, didn't really get out of third gear.
Didn't have to, did they? Didn't have to get out of third gear. Not after the first half hour. Team news came in at 2 o'clock, and there's been clamour for Jayden Clark since Tuesday night to play from the start. Very good performance again at Luton. Good performance against Southampton. We've seen good cameos in the league. There was clamour for Neil to be braver with his team selection and go 4-4-2 with natural width either side. Neil Harris gave us all that. His players didn't repay him, but we shall get to that. That team in full for the Gills was Jake Turner in goal. It was a back four of Robbie McKenzie, Max Emer, Shad Ogie and Scott Malone. It was then Conor Mahoney, Timmy Dieng, the captain Sean Williams, and the aforementioned Jayden Clark as a midfield bank of four. And it was Tom Nichols and Ashley Nadersson in attack. For Grimsby, it looked like a 4-1-4-1 formation. That team in full was Eastwood in goal, Malarkey, Rogers, Mayer and Amos as a back four from right to left. It was then Conte that was charged with anchor in the midfield. In front of him, Ganua, Holohan, Clifton and Isa. And up front, it was Danny Rose. I think the scene was set first 30 seconds, wasn't it, Rhys? I always filmed the sort of opening section of the game for the first half underway clip of the Matchday Live, and it was Grimsby getting the ball, keeping the ball, becoming a threat, and us having to block across and defend a corner. I felt the first 5-10 minutes were very open. I think they had another corner which we defended okay, and then we went up the other end. There was a decent ball in from one side that got cleared out by the far post. I think Robbie McKenzie flung in a throw in, and that got blocked or defended fairly well. Probably too open for Neil Harris. We know how he likes to set his teams up, and we'll get to Neil and systems and formations and the blame game again, unfortunately, later in the episode. But felt very open. A minute later, unfortunately, it was too open because they got another corner. 3 of 5 that they earned in the first half. We just didn't learn from our mistakes. We kept making the same errors. We kept failing to clear our lines. We kept picking the wrong pass. We was going long when we should have gone short. We was trying to play when we should have just clipped it and turned them round. We'll get to that in a little while as well. Corner came in. Whether it was meant to go as near post as it did is by the by. Unfortunately, Maxima fails to run with his man, which was Niall Mayer. Glancing header's good enough. Jake Turner's got no chance. 1-0 down inside 10 minutes and giving another team a head start, certainly in terms of territory, but this time in terms of an early goal as well.
Well, it's what's interesting is actually the first sort of I hardly finished my introduction in my video by the time Grimsby had a corner. I was like, okay, so you're right. It did set the precedence very early on, but actually, I did think the first sort of that's maybe 10 minutes a bit generous, but we had a corner in the first 2 minutes as well. And I think actually the first few minutes of the game, it generally looked like it could have been relatively competitive. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a tough away game. We know Grimsby are always a hard place to come to. But then they just took hold of the half. But they say eventually got a couple more corners, which, as you've described. Maxima just a little bit not as alert as he should be, and the ball was in the back of the net. I think who got the header? Was it Mayer who eventually got the header?
Oh, Mayer, yeah.
Mayer, yeah. But tidy header, but unchallenged.
That's it, yeah. This is the thing. What he's done very well. But what we've done is very, very poor. We've not defended the near post. We've not defended our box, which is something that we've been very good at generally throughout Neil Harris's reign, regardless of all the goal scoring and creativity issues, which we will talk about. Generally, we defend fairly well, but it was an early lapse, and we got punished.
And that's it. And I'm sorry to say that every time we seem to be on the back foot and then go behind, I can recall one game last season when we pulled it around from a losing position. I think that was at Wimbledon. I think we were 1-0 down.
That's the only game that we've won from behind in the league under Neil Harris, which is something that needs to be sorted out. I totally get that, and we're not sitting here and saying that there's things that Neil Harris can't improve on, 100%. But we'll get to the performance in isolation later on in the show, and whether that was on Neil or whether that was solely on the players or a bit of both. But you certainly can't give good sides. You know, I mean, they've had a solid start to the season. They've lost once. I think they've drawn 3-1. I don't think they've lost at home going into the game yesterday. So, like you said, it was going to be a tough game. It was 2 tough games last season. I think we drew 1-1 up there. It was probably unlucky not to get the points. We actually had the ball in the net 3 times that day. And then we had a late winner at Priestfield, didn't we? So we knew what was coming in terms of style of play and what they was going to be about. And sadly, we continually failed to deal with that.
No, I just want to add in, just to kind of conclude that when we did go 1-0 down, every time, especially this season, I do feel like every time we go down, I always want a response. I feel like a response is needed, but like at Colchester and Colchester, there was a minor attempt at response, but yesterday going 1 down, it's like there was no reaction whatsoever, and it was just a surprise to me that happened, and then the style of play tended to be very similar prior to the goal and after the goal. And that was for me, unfortunately, the story of the game moving forward actually as well. But
there was one good chance at 1-0, a very good chance, and that was the one time that we decided to play through the lines. And Scott Malone, I think, escaped over halfway, played a great ball into the box, and I think it was Ashley Naderson. Gills Twitter had it as Tom Nichols, but I'm 100% sure it was number 10 that got in between the 2 centre halves. He looks 8-10 yards out with the keeper but he's got to hit the target. It looks to me like he's gone with the wrong foot almost, and it sort of hit him on the inside of the ankle rather than a good connection. That goes in, it's probably a completely different game. You shut the crowd up, the confidence comes back, but it didn't.
No,
we didn't. They went straight up the other end and scored again. And if we thought the first one was bad enough from our point of view, this was an absolute catastrophe from a defensive point of view. Maxima's got the ball, and I'm a fan of Maxima, and I'll sit here and admit that. I've got no issue with Maxima being in this side. But he's not covered himself in glory at all yesterday. First one, loses his runner. Second one, gives the ball to Shadogi. Could he have just clipped it like he does a lot and like fans clamour for him to not do? So in the defence of Maxima, I suppose I'm saying, well, fans want him to play. So he's tried to play when he should probably clear his line. So you can't have it both ways. But I think it's the wrong option again. And then it just gets worse from there. Shadogi has a shocking touch, ends up trying to stretch, loses the ball to Abu Issa. They then have an overload the other side because we've all had to tuck in. And Gavin Holohan's got the freedom of the 18-yard box just to slot it under Jake Turner, who again had no chance. 2-0, 27 minutes on the clock. And I've written down that was the first time this season, purely due to the ineptitude of that performance, that I thought this is done.
Yeah, when the second goal went in, you know, it was there. I didn't see a way, because usually you kind of think half time might come, there might be a team, but if we change, we might go back into this. But I generally thought that the first half performance up and it was so abject and offered, apart from the cross from Malone, which Nelson just didn't quite get right on the end of. Apart from that, I tell you what, I think just before, maybe it was after the second goal or before, I can't remember exactly. There was a moment, I think it was when we were 1-0 down. Eastwood for Grimsby clears an awful ball out of defence, and it lands to Mahoney, and he starts running through. He takes on, I think, one player, gets in a great position. I think he's got Nichols to his right, puts a pass in, which was, I mean, I could make that pass, I'm sure of it, but just completely overhit it for Nichols not to get. It was awful pass and went out for a goal kick, and it was such an advantageous position. I just thought, okay, this is. Are we going to be this bad
Is
today?
that our day? Yeah. Is that going to be our day? Yeah. Yeah, there's the other one, I think, as well, weren't there, where the keeper kicked it straight to Naderson.
Yeah.
And he tried to shoot, and he'd had one charge down as well. So it was Grimsby were trying to help us out for a really small period of time, but we just had nothing about us in terms of being able to take advantage of it. And yeah, like I say, that was the first time this season I thought at that early stage of the game that we were in real trouble, and I couldn't see us getting back into it. There was another half chance again. We didn't clear our lines. Toby Malarkey snapshot from the edge of the box. Luckily, it went over, but there was no one getting out to it with any real urgency. Everything just felt very lackadaisical and very sort of half-arsed to me, which was concerning. And I've watched the small clip of Neil Harris, his interview afterwards. The full one's not been uploaded yet, but we'll get onto that at the end. But you have to agree with what Neil Harris said in terms of the things that we didn't do. One of the words was the basics, which was 100% correct. And then Tom Nichols went down with an injury. Yeah. So that's now 3 strikers we've got on the treatment table. And that summed up our first half, I think.
I think it sums up, like, it is it's the worst half of football, I think. I mean, even though we were free at Colchester, I genuinely think that was worse than the 3 at Colchester. We just offered nothing. We looked like a team that, who had been. Now, I want to talk about it a little bit later, but I was going to have been on a drink the night before. But there was no cohesion. There was nothing to it, and it looked like everyone was just out of breath after the second goal went in and couldn't put anything together. And I'm sure that feeling was felt in the Gillingham away end as well. It was kind of, I imagine, very sort of quiet and sort of breathy in sort of support as well.
It was, and all you could hear then was just stuff directed at the manager. Dominantly, unfortunately, stuff directed at the players to a degree, but it was mainly directed at Neil Harris, and it just sucked the life out of the whole afternoon, unfortunately. 2 changes came at the break. So Neil was trying to, well, we thought he was going to try and tweak it. I thought we might have gone to 3 centre-backs, but it wasn't. It was a change of personnel, but no change of shape. So it was Shad Ogie withdrawn for Shay Alexander, and Sean Williams, the captain, was withdrawn for Connor Masterson. It meant that there was a bit of a reshuffle. Robbie McKenzie moved into midfield alongside Timmy Dieng. Shay went in at right back, and Connor Masterson obviously was a straight swap for Shad at centre back. Comments on social media saying it should have been Maxima that was withdrawn. Can understand that, but it could have been a number of any. I mean, if we could have made 11 changes, I think Neil Harris would have made 11 changes if that was within the rules, because absolutely everybody, maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But there would have been more than 2 changes if Neil Harris was allowed to do it. So it could have been Ogie, it could have been Ema. I thought both fullbacks were shocking on the day. That was comfortably Scott Malone's worst performance in a Gills shirt, aside from the, I think he had one header second half, and he had that cross for Naderson. Lost count of the amount of times he just gave the ball away in poor areas. Robbie McKenzie looked like a player that's not started a load of games recently, just took ages to sort of settle into the game. They seemed to target that side. He was getting the run around from Issa and Ganua when they switched sides. Basically any foundation.
Just one thing on that. You're talking to go for a couple of players, because we talked about Jalen Clark, who came into the squad and everyone was calling for him to start in the league game. And what's really interesting for me watching that, I mean, from my perspective, watching that his individual performance, there were moments where actually he was making relatively decent decisions. He was quite good on the ball, and he was trying to make some stuff happen. But he was put under so much pressure by his players around him that it didn't quite work out for him. But I actually felt really sorry for Jayden Clark, because actually he was individually, when he had the ball, he looked like he was okay, comfortable on it. It was going around a couple of players that had a bit of composure. For me, it's like kind of the only little positive I had from him. And there might, I don't know if that's a minority opinion, but I definitely saw glimpses of what his performances were like in the cup games. And I think it's just the players around him have let him down in that sense, because I thought he looked okay considering in context of the whole performance yesterday. I know he got subbed off on the 70th minute for Williams to come on, but actually I thought he, considering the context of the game, I'm saying he tried to give his all. Actually, he was like one of the only players to go, okay, fair enough. He played, was okay in a really rubbish team, particularly for.
Well, I've got a question for you later on in the episode, so we'll park that and we'll come back to it, because I've got a question for you regarding Jayden Clark, because like you say, there was this clamour for him to come into the starting 11.
Mm-hmm.
Did it work? Did it not work? Reasons why. We'll get to that. Unfortunately, in terms of the game itself, though, Rhys, we made changes in personnel, but there was no change in pattern of the game. There was no sort of reaction from any sort of half-time rollicking that Neil Harris surely would have given his players. First shot of any note was from Grimsby, and it forced Jake Turner into a very smart stop with his right hand down low, which went out for a corner. We just continue to be flat. We continue to be passive. We continue to be second best to everything. Half chance, 64th minute. I've actually wrote the minute down because that was the first shot on target that Gills mustered. It wasn't the best chance. The best chance was comfortably the one for Ashley Nadersson, where he has to do better. Tim Dieng, tame header straight at Jake Eastwood from a Shea Alexander cross. And again, if you're looking for things that sum up where we were in terms of a performance, over an hour until we've got one in between the posts and actually forced the keeper just to fall on it. Again, that was in keeping with the performance overall.
I think that's the chance where I cheered a shot on target. I don't think I've ever cheered a shot on target so passionately before. Like, it was because I wanted something to cheer about. And generally, that's to get a shot on target at 63 minutes. Firstly, is unacceptable in my opinion. But and the actual shot on target itself, like you said, was tame, was easy for the keeper to gather, was kind of a non-event, really. The only reason it is an event is because it's our first shot on target. If we were surrounded by attacking play and we had a couple of shots on target prior to that, this wouldn't be even in any discussion.
No, exactly. You're right. And the whole we've had a shot chance resurface for the first time in a long time amongst the away support, which, when you're not being entertained by your football team, of course, you've got to try and entertain yourselves to some degree. And I'd much rather that than listen to some of the stuff that was coming out of some mouths. But people pay their money. I suppose they think that they have a right to voice their opinions in certain ways, and that's entirely up to them. Back to Jayden Clark. We've already mentioned him. 70th minute. All this talk of he's got to play. For me, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing against Jayden Clark. He was in amongst plenty of others that were ineffectual on the afternoon, whether that's his fault, Neil's fault, the performance's fault. The question I've got for you, though, there's a big difference between League Two football and cup football, isn't there? In terms of space you get on the ball, time you get on the ball. League Two, you're not going to get that. You're going to get absolutely rattled into straight away. You're going to have a touch, you've got to offload, or you've got to beat your man. I think the nature of cup football has made it, and again, in no disrespect to Jayden, because them two performances against Southampton and Luton Town are very, very encouraging in terms of the mid to longer term and his development. But cup games, Southampton, Luton, Southampton were chasing the game, so that invariably means there's more space for Jayden to be able to play into. Luton, a different type of opposition to what we see in League Two generally. You've got the odd side that wants to play, but not to the same standard as Luton Town. So again, you get more space, you get more grass to run into, to play with. Is it maybe a case of we go back to the other route? I know we might not be able to at the moment, and again, we'll talk about injuries, but maybe just sort of continuing to phase Jayden in a bit more. There's a good opportunity Tuesday in the Papa John's Trophy for him to get more minutes. But in terms of League Two, was that just a step too far to put him in from the off?
It could be. It's a really interesting point, the comparison you make between cup and league football, because there is a void between the two styles of football, absolutely. And I think because Jayden's been put into this cup context where he had a lot of space to run around, a lot of opportunities to show his individual flair and have that. And I suppose looking at it from that perspective, you might think, oh, we want that in League Two fixtures. But then, like you said, if you flip and look at the League Two football style in that context, actually they don't match particularly well, and as a result, Jayden struggled to really replicate what he's managed to put in against League Cup opposition. And it's interesting because that's maybe the style of football I was talking about just a minute ago, that he's trying to do that against teams that are closing him down and putting huge amounts of pressure on him really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So he's forced into mistakes. So it could actually look like the team around him are not doing their job. Albeit, yes, I think that to a certain extent is the case. But also because the pressure of play is so accelerated in League Two football, by that nature, he doesn't have much time on the ball as he would have potentially in cup games. And therefore, that lack of experience is letting him down slightly, or that especially that lack of league experience was definitely exposing yesterday, I suppose.
And can we then also expand that to us as a collective? People going, oh, well, we beat Southampton 3-1 and we scored 2 at Luton. Why can't we just do that in the league? Again, it's the same concept. It's not the same football in League Two. You've not got, you go to Kenilworth Road, it's a big pitch, it's a carpet, you can play, you can get it down. There's no points at stake. These cup games, we're the underdog. So we've got a free swing. So we can maybe play in a more relaxed fashion without the worry of, oh, if we get knocked out, okay, people expected us to get knocked out. When points are up for grabs, the mindset has to change. And I think that's where Neil then goes back to this defensive first approach. I suppose it's a case of, and we'll talk about it towards the end of the episode. We've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but I suppose about getting the balance right between defence and attack, because we've seen in the first 4 games in the league that we've managed to get ourselves in front, and we're generally very good at managing games from the front. There's an issue for us when we concede the first goal in terms of creativity and an ability to chase a football match.
No, I agree. And I think this comes down to yesterday, we lacked a lot of creativity. And this was a big thing for you, especially going forward. Absolutely no creativity. But if we go behind, we need to, I think it's very easy for fans to say, "Oh, manager doesn't have a plan B, doesn't have a plan B." I don't buy the fact that there is no plan B at all, or even plan C or plan D. No. It's just how effective is that plan B, and are we instilling that early enough in the game to make an impact? Maybe at halftime there obviously was kind of a plan B. We made 2 changes and we tried to change the shape and try and do something about it. It just didn't work yesterday at all. And who's to blame?
Whereas it did against Luton. We changed the shape, went to a back 3 or something. Or no, I think we played a back 3 from the off, made tweaks at halftime, got back into the game. I mean, I can't comment on the performance individually or collectively. I wasn't there, but you look at the stats, it looked like we absolutely bashed Luton second half. So it's not a case of that Neil's not willing to do it or can't do it or doesn't do it. Like you said, there's context of games. At 2-0 down after half an hour, Grimsby are going to sit in and allow us to come onto them, and we didn't offer enough to do anything in terms of altering the pattern of the game. So then you become hindered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's also a really good point to make. Scoring a second goal in the game is if you go 2-0 up, it's really important to realise that the team that went 2-0 up are going to be, if they know they can just sit back and hold tight and defend, that's how we won the first 4 games, right? So
exactly, that's what we're going to do. Like I saw a comment on Twitter over the weekend saying, "Oh, we was running to the corner flag in the last 5 minutes of games." Well, why wouldn't you? What team would not run to the corner flag and protect the ball if they're leading by a 1-0 in a football match at any level? Even Man City do it.
Yeah,
they're current European champions, Premier League champions, won the treble last season. You're going to protect what you get when you get to a certain stage in a football match if the game is tight. Of course, we want us to score the second goal. I do, you do, Neil does, the players does, every fan does. Because it makes our job a lot easier. But you have to play to the conditions and the situation of the game. And
it's but it's easy to forget it's a results business, right? You know, like you can't. I don't see the point in, if you want to protect a lead, absolutely, but what, at the expense of trying to get a second goal, and then you can see makes it 1-1, and then you've got a point instead of 3, and then then people will say, "Why won't you run into the corner?" You know, so
exactly that. This is my biggest frustration with social media, that too many for me only pick up on the negatives. There's no comments from a lot of people if we're doing well, like people you've not heard from for a fortnight when we've won 4 games 1-0, and then as soon as Colchester came last week, they're all over everybody's timeline. Do both sides. Like, I'll give a lot of credit to players, but we'll also dig them out when we know that, and we're digging them out now because that was horrendous yesterday.
Absolutely.
Big tangent, but not much else to talk about in terms of the game. There was another good save from Jake Turner to prevent it from going to 3-0. And then I made a comment on the Matchday Live, and it was the clip I used for the Instagram story. Final 15, 20 minutes, you're 2-0 down, you should be chasing the game. You should be throwing absolutely everything out. It should be Alamo type situation. Like, go and have a go. Get beat 3-0, but have a real go. Nothing from us at all. And I said, go on.
I was like, do you know what it reminded me of? There was, I think you made a point last year that sometimes you get really frustrated when Gills would say, added time, 6 minutes, full time.
Then full time tweet. And that was it, yeah. And that's what that performance was yesterday. It was absolutely that, all over. But yeah, there was nothing, absolutely nothing from us. Full-time whistle went, and then it all started. The screaming of abuse at Neil Harris, who did clap. He did walk towards the away support. He didn't come right over, but why would he? He's not going to come over and fist bump and you know, all that type of thing. We've just been beaten. He knows we were crap. We know we were crap. But if it was me, or someone said to me as I got on the coach, "Oh, I noticed Neil didn't walk right down to the corner flag." So I said, "Would you? If that was you and you was getting that type of abuse lobbed at you, after 2 defeats in 6 league games, we're still 3rd in the league. I think people have forgotten that."
Yeah.
And I said to someone else, Rhys, if we played 6, won 4, lost 2, and we'd gone win, win, loss, win, loss, win, no one bats an eyelid.
No, you're right.
If we'd lost 1-0 at Stockport first day and beaten Colchester, no one bats an eyelid. It's been a rubbish week. I get that. Luton, all right, was a decent performance against a good side, but we lost. We've lost 3 on the bounce. But some of the stuff I was hearing, like people with kids, just nothing constructive. I'll sit here and have a discussion with you, with anyone on social media, in a ground and a debate, because I love talking about football. But I've got no interest in people who just go, "He's this. He's got no clue. He's a C-bomb." That's coming out, and I was just like, "This is flabbergasted." Like, and one individual was so angry trying to get up the steps that he almost fell up the steps, literally spit coming out of his mouth. He was that incandescent with rage. We're still 3rd in the table.
Yeah, I know. This is, I'm not defending anyone here. I get, we're all frustrated. I get that.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely frustrated. I totally get that. But I think, I think it's easy to. I think we need to stop looking at games individually every single time. I think it's very important to take perspective out of the whole thing. And I think you made a really good point. This kind of like, it's important to look at the sequence of events, because if the means of us, the points we have now, it doesn't seem to matter. It's all how we got there seems to be what people are worried about. We've lost the last 2 league games. Okay, if we'd lost the first League 2 games and then won the next 4.
Are we winning the league? Does that mean we're automatically getting promoted? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And that's what I've written down. I've used the word that you've just used, perspective. So we'll try and give some perspective. We'll park the Neil Harris thing for now. We had a great 2 weeks, but it was 2 weeks that didn't mean we were going to win the League 2 title. It didn't automatically mean that we were going to get promoted. We went to Stockport and we nicked a close game. I don't think anyone can say that either side 100% deserved to win it. A draw was probably fair, but we took our chance. So, good performance, good result. Southampton, one of the best performances I've seen in a long time in the Cup, to knock them out 3-1. Good performance. Accrington at home, the most comfortable 1-0 performance I've seen in a long time. Good performance. Sutton went there, took the lead, defended our box properly, didn't really come under any real threat. good performance. But people seem to have forgotten that.
Yep.
Crawley rode our luck. I absolutely get that.
Oh,
Didn't
totally.
deserve to win the football match. Was a bit of a mugging. But that's League Two football.
Yep.
And I've seen people saying, "Oh, this performances have been happening for the last few games."
Really, I don't see that either. That perplexes me to a certain extent as well.
Even the Colchester game, there was nothing in it for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Timmy Dieng scores one of his two good chances first half. We take the lead. It's a completely different game. They then take the lead after 60 minutes, and then they pick us off on the break. That happens. But for 60 minutes, there was nothing in the football match.
No, and that Colchester game, nothing for 60 minutes. That it could have easily been again 1-0 to us. Like Timmy Dean gets a goal, bang, sorted, defend that, you know, and
then we can do what teams like Grimsby yesterday did to us, where you sit here and you say, "You come on, and we'll pick you off on the break." Grimsby, awful, absolutely awful. Not going to sit here and pretend anything else. It was a shocking performance that, like I said at the top of the show, deserved nothing, got nothing. But we've still got the most points in the division since the start of the year. We're still averaging 2 points per game in the league this season. So say we play Harrogate, you'd say we should beat. But again, obviously, that's a must-win game. It's not a must-win game. It's the 7th league game of the season, for crying out loud. If we take 4 points from the next 2 weeks, we've got 16 from our opening 8. We're going to be in the top 3.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Where's the perspective gone?
Absolutely. I don't understand it either. Like, Harrogate, people think Harrogate a must-win game. Really? Okay. But I understand that we need to bounce back of a good performance. We've got 2 home league games in a row next.
We have, yeah. I think 3 of the next. I think 3 of the next 4 or 5 are at home as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it would be. I want to see. I want to see a reaction. Of course we do. Of course do. But I don't. But it's not a must-win game. Like I say, it's the 7th game. Like it's not like it's the 42nd game and we need to get 3 points to try and creep into automatics or something. I mean, we're not even anywhere near that yet.
No, like Hartlepool last season was must-win. If we got beat first game after the Gallinsons players could come in, we'd have been 10, 11 points from safety.
Yeah.
That for me was must-win. Sitting third in the table, they're not must-win games a month into the season. Honestly, people just need I'd give their heads a wobble. I'm sorry. I find that ridiculous, a comment to say that it's a must-win game a month into a new campaign. Also with a team where there's still plenty of new starters. Like Jake Turner, if you go through that team yesterday, Jake Turner wasn't a regular last season. Shad Ogie's a new player. Scott Malone's a new player. Connor Mahoney joined 10 days ago. Jaden Clark wasn't a regular back end of last season. Tom Nichols was, but Ashley Naderson joined in the summer. Like it's not like this team's been together 3 years. This is still a relatively new group that's being put on the pitch. I'm not making excuses because they were horrific for the entirety of the Grimsby game. But like you've said, there's a much bigger picture. And that is that we've been better in more games than we've been rubbish so far this season.
Absolutely. And also, I think there's one extra little caveat here or something to consider is we played Luton Tuesday, and we put out a relatively strong squad, and it was away from home, and the context of the game is different. It's probably I didn't watch the game. I don't know if it was a faster or a slower game, but regardless of that, it's going to be a little bit exhausted. It's going to be tiring. Grimsby, I think, did a load of swaps on their Tuesday night game and played Man City under 21, so they might be a bit more refreshed compared to a Gillingham team coming up. And also, we have got some injuries as well that we need to need to bear that in mind as well. And we can't control that. That's out of our control to a certain extent. So the style of football or the consistency that Harris would want sometimes can't be put in place because of injuries out of his control.
Absolutely, yeah. And they are stacking up now, aren't they? We've got Lewis Walker out till October, November, I'd imagine, with another knee problem. We've got this, is it something? Anyway, something to do with planting your foot, plantab something. It's a fancy name. Ollie Hawkins is really struggling with, so we don't know when he's back. Dom Jeffries looks to have done something quite severe to his hamstring, so that's a month or 2, you'd imagine. So I think we're missing him more than we realised. I think people said, oh, he's not a natural winger, but what he gives is your balance between defence and attack because he's able to do both sides of the game. He almost reminds me of what Alex McDonald did in the Steve Evans side when we played behind closed doors in COVID, is that he'll operate from the left, but out of position, he's able to tuck in and make us solid. I'm not sure Jaden Clark or Connor Mahoney are that type of winger. They want to be on the front foot. I'm not saying they don't work hard, but I think they naturally want to be out wide on the touchline if operating in them areas to try and stretch games going forwards. then defensively it might leave us a little bit more exposed going the other way. Who else? George Lapsley's missed the last 3 from Colchester. He's not been about for a week, so that's been put down as a knock. Maybe it was to do with the car crash.
And also, these players that are missing, one of the strengths that we had from last season going to this season, what we were happy, we had a core set of players that we could build a team around. Actually, a lot of that core is the one that's injured at the moment as well. So that's why
that's
we're talking about point. Like we have a lot of new players. You were saying who are starting have only been here for a short period of time. You know, the core frame of the team is the personnel that are injured.
And you can add Tom Nichols to that now, because that looked like a groin problem or something yesterday. He was limping heavily as he came off before half time. So yeah, if you look at it from that point of view, Dom Jeffries was brilliant second half of last season. Hawkins and Nichols was the front two that scored 9 goals between them.
Yep.
Lapsley had his moments, certainly towards the end of the season when Ollie Hawkins missed games through illness.
They know each other. They know how each other plays.
It's leaving us limited, isn't it, in terms of what we can do, shape and personnel. We had Ronald Satole on the bench at Grimsby. Just the performance. I've got one final question yesterday, and then I want to do like an overview. Was that performance on Neil Harris? Was that performance on the players? Was it a mixture of both?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think everyone on the pitch needs to be accountable for how they played yesterday. I think Harris has to be accountable for not being able to get a reaction out of the team in the second half, at least. But I think I think everyone, I think, and the staff as well, that the playing staff and the coaching staff all can take a little bit of accountability for that. But I also think it's a product of the context of the team and the context of that week as well. I think all has culminated into a performance that was the most underwhelming experience I think I've seen so far this season. I think players need to be more accountable for how they play. I think people sometimes need to realise that. I know Harris will go out and put a team, and he does put a defensive team out. But if you put a defensive team out and you let 2 goals in the nature that we did, Harris has set the team as has done before, and it's been successful. This time is the players that I think also need to take a huge amount of accountability of how they performed yesterday. And so for me, it would be a mixture of everyone. Would be my approach.
See, for me, it was more on the players for me yesterday, and I've said that on social media. People have seen me tweeting and having discussions with various individuals. Like Neil Harris can coach and set us up and do shape work and tactics throughout the week. If you're going to then send out 11 players onto the pitch at 3 o'clock, who are then not going to pick up their man from a corner, that are then going to mess about with it on the edge of their own box, have a poor touch, play a poor pass, make the wrong decision over and over again throughout the game. That's not tactics. That's not shape. That's just players being well off the pace for me.
Yeah.
Which brings us on to the bigger picture. And that is this ongoing issue, goal scoring, creativity, that's been there since Neil Harris took over. So for that one person that accused me yesterday on social media of saying that the performance was on the players because I interviewed Neil Harris, that is absolute bullshit, my friend, and I will defend myself, because that is not what this channel is about. If I was sitting here and I was just saying things that the club want me to say so I can get access to player interviews and staff interviews, nobody would watch, nobody would subscribe. Rant over. Rhys, there is a bigger problem with creativity. Neil Harris said in his first interview, Verdane Oliver will score goals in my team. We've not seen much of that. Verdane, I think, scored 3 or 4 back end of the relegation season. I know he was probably not fully fit, so there were extenuating circumstances, but it was a massive issue at the start of the last campaign. It improved to a degree back end of 22, 23. I think we scored 29 in 23 games over the second half of the season. We've now got 4 in 6, so it's under a goal a game again. I'm not sure what the rules are for the EFL Trophy. Is it people that started there's a certain amount, or is it people that were involved in the game? But we'll get to that. But we've got this conundrum, certainly with George Lapsley and to a degree Johnny Williams. Can we play with width, and can we play with that type of player that takes care of the football in the middle of the park in higher areas, allowing us to maybe just put our foot on it and keep possession around opposition's penalty areas more than what we're seeing at the moment? Because like I've said, you've said, it was discussed on Gills in the pub on Friday, we cannot chase games. there is this real problem with us going behind and then not being able to get anything out of football matches. I think throughout Neil Harris's reign, there's been 2 wins in all competitions from behind. That was Wimbledon in the league and Colchester in the Papa John's Trophy. I think there's been a half dozen draws or so, give or take. Aside from that, it's very slim pickings, and it's something that needs to change if we want to continue to be in the top 7, the top 3, and want to get to where we want to be. How do we try and get the balance right again? Are we being forced into it now because we're down to 2 strikers? We've only got 5 on our books. I mean, we've got 5 on our books, sorry, but we've only got Ashley Nadesan and still a slightly undercooked for me, Macaulay Bonne, who doesn't look fully match fit yet. So what's the answer?
That's a $1 million question for me at the moment. It's a really tricky question to answer, because you're absolutely right. There's, we have reduced personnel at the moment going forward. Harris did say we're going to be much more on the ball, much more going forward, much more attacking, but we haven't seen it. Why is that? I mean, there could be millions of answers to that question, and it's really hard to put your finger on it. But I just feel I don't know. It could be both tactically, it could be both mentally. Are we putting ourselves under unnecessary pressure going forward? I don't know actually what it is. We should, if you look on paper, if you have Nichols and Allison up front, they played over 100 games of each other. That chemistry should be really strong. And so why is it? We've seen it in glimpses. We saw it at Sutton. They supported each other to go to win 1-0 up.
And Accrington at home. Accrington was a Nichols assist as well. Yeah.
So I think it's in the tank somewhere. It has to be in the tank somewhere. We've got enough personnel. We've got enough quality in the final third. But what does disappoint me, what I find very surprising, is that I think we're very hasty going forward. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be very quick in our attacking final third.
In terms of getting the ball from back to front, do you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we tried to. I think we tried to be too quick. We tried to be hasty with it. Try to go forward and try and do things too quickly. Where when we see Grimsby yesterday and other teams as well, they get the ball, they pass it around, they work through the defense, and they pass it around. They go around the box, they go back, and I thought we would see a lot more of that calm and composed play in the final third this season, and it doesn't seem to be the case. All of our goals have tended to be sort of like one quick movement, bang, and it's there. Like the goal at Crawley, for example, his own goal, but Shadrach Oji, he got into a very quick position, fired it across the box, caught Crawley player by surprise, own goal.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Very fair point, because if you look at the goals in all the league games, so Stockport was a pinball after a corner. Accrington was a long punt downfield.
Yep.
Bounced off Nadesan, but Nichols was alert. I know we played some good stuff in that game and should have scored probably 2 or 3 more at least. Sutton was defensive error that Nichols pinched. Crawley, like you say, was an own goal. Games in the cup, it's difficult to say because, like we said, it's a completely different nature competition in terms of how the games are played as well. So yeah, there's certainly room for plenty of improvements. For me, we've got to try and find a way to get, when he's fit, George Lapsley as a 10 or Johnny Williams as a 10. I know Johnny's played from the side before. Does Neil perhaps have to go away from this, not obsession, but want to play 2 centre forwards? Purely now, because we've only got 2, so maybe you've got to protect one. Because if we now go and start Bonne and Nadesan and Bonne pulls up in the next week with a muscle tweak because he's not fully fit, then suddenly there's all the pressure just goes onto Ashley's shoulders, and then we're in a bad way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not scoring loads already.
No, and that's a real problem. It's crazy to think that we were crying out for people moving forward. We got them on the books, and then we're finding it hard to play them all because they're injured. It's a bit or not match fit, and all of a sudden you're putting potentially pressure just on one player to make moving forward to make all of the goals. It's a tricky one. So actually, I think Lapsley and Williams have to play a more of an integral role in trying to create goals, either for themselves individually or for people around in the final third to actually get the goal scoring momentum moving. Absolutely. I think there might need to be a change of style of play or at least the tactics up front to be able to accommodate people going forward like Lapsley or Williams, because without that, you put all the pressure on one player to create everything. And I don't think that's a sustainable tactical model going forward if we want to try and generate a lot more goals and opportunities.
And we proved that we could do it last season when Ollie Hawkins went downhill and we played Lapsley off of Tom Nichols and played Tom as the number 9, didn't we? Very good against Stockport for 80 minutes, should have won the game. I think Leighton Orient was similar. Yep, that was Lapsley off of Nichols. So we know we can do it. There's something holding Neil back in the league games, and I'm not sure what it is. And it comes back to balance, getting us defensively sound, but allowing those forward players to flourish more, because they're not at the moment. We've not seen anywhere near the best of Johnny Williams. We've certainly not seen the best of Jules Lapsley this season. I think we've seen flashes of Tom Nichols in terms of assists and goals, and we've certainly seen it from Ashley Nadesan, but he's gone off the boil. Macaulay Bonne, again, slightly different because he's not up to match speed yet. I think he will come good. I really do. So looking at Tuesday night, something of a free swing in a competition that nobody really takes seriously until you probably get to the quarterfinals and Wembley comes into view on the horizon. The Papa John's Trophy, the much maligned stuffed crust, pepperoni passion, I've heard it called. I'm not sure, like we said, I'm not sure what the rules are. Is it you've got to have a certain amount of players that were in, is it involved in your last league game or started your last league game? Because if it's involved, then I think we can make a lot of changes.
The number, for some reason, and I'm happy to be corrected, but the number 5 sticks in my head for that particular rule.
So was it 5 that played a part in the 90 minutes? Or was it 5 that started the previous league game?
I can't answer that with clarity, but I've got. If I was to put my money on it, it would be who started. So that would be my hunch.
If anyone's listening, Gills fan or Grimsby fan, please let us know, because we're trying to pick a team for Tuesday and we don't know the rules. Such is the interest in this wonderful, wonderful competition. But saying that, I probably will go and watch it. I think Glenn Morris comes back into goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tuesday night, I'd imagine Max Clark gets a run out. Connor Masterson will get a start. Which then I think Ethan Coleman can feature in this competition. The ban doesn't apply to this one. So I'd imagine he'll come in to give Timmy Dieng, Sean Williams a rest. So maybe it could be Coleman and McKenzie in the middle of the park, because McKenzie started. You might have to leave Jaden Clark in and/or Connor Mahoney. If the rules apply and the rules allow, I would go Glenn Morris in goal, a back four of Alexander, Masterson, Ogie and Clark. I'd have Colfin sitting with McKenzie. I'd then play Jaden Clark and Ronald Satoli from the sides. Johnny Williams to start in the 10 for me, because I'm not sure George Lapsley's going to be fit, and Macaulay Bonne has to start the game because we need to give Ashley Nadesan a rest as well. So, but if the rules don't allow, we should just wait for Tuesday's team news to come out around 6 p.m. Anything to add, Rhys? Any other business?
There's one thing I want to add. It's just kind of sort of the tail of what you said earlier, and it's about our attacking prowess moving forward, and that we need to be more aggressive to make more goals. What's interesting is that actually, if you exclude the Grimsby game and all the other league games, our man of the matches have fallen on the defenders.
Which I get, because you have clean sheets, so there's not loads of goal scoring. But yeah, it's something that needs to be rectified. Generally, the people that take the headlines are the creative influences, the goal scorers. Them wow factor players, and we're not seeing enough of any of that trio of things from our football team at the moment, and it needs to change. Because, and I think I remember a couple of weeks ago the T20 pod, I think Ali Maxwell was very strong on us, saying the best League Two teams are built on a strong foundation, being robust, being resolute, and finding a way to get over the line, which we were doing. And George Ellick, I think, said it's not sustainable. Gills won't win every match, football match 1-0. And he wanted to see more from us. Since then, we've conceded 5 and not scored a goal. So I think at the moment you have to say that we're probably falling more into the George Elliott camp than we are the Ali Maxwell camp. But 3 out of the next 4 at home, dare I say, a winnable away game at Doncaster, are really struggling. We could be sat here in a month and we could have picked up 10 points and everything looks rosy with the world again. But there are certainly improvements that need to be made. I certainly don't think sacking the manager is the right thing to do. I think it's ludicrous to even be having that chat when we're 3rd in the league. We've beaten a team that had fallen out of the Premier League last season in a cup competition. Are we done?
I think we've run that dry.
We got more out of it than we thought we would, to be fair. That's because I went off on a bit of a rant a couple of times. But no, I do care passionately about this football club, but I also care passionately about this channel, as Rhys does his. And when people start accusing me of stuff that's completely untrue, I will defend myself. Gills fans, Grimsby fans, if you are watching and you've got this far, as I will say, thank you very much. We'll be back Tuesday, most likely, for a match day live in the pepperoni passion stuffed crust thingy mabob trophy. Be nice to see some of those fringe players get minutes. Might even see a couple of the youngsters involved in the squad. Be interesting to see how Leighton Orient approach it, considering they've had a tricky start to the season. I think Joe Pickett plays for them now. He always scores against us.
Always.
After that, hopefully we'll be able to sit down with a Harrogate fan later in the week to preview next Saturday. And of course, we will be back at Priestfield for the return of Sky Bet League 2 next weekend. Subscribe to Rhys. Watch his stuff. It's bloody good. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. What's left of it. It's now Sunday evening when you're watching this. We'll see you during the week. And up the Gills.